2019 Honobia Bigfoot Conference storytelling. Who all is their first night? First time here? Okay. It's been a tradition since 2010 we do storytelling. But when we're talking about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever name you want to use, in the native culture, they believe to be spirit and flesh and blood. And the word cryptozoology, with all other things that roam around that are mythical, kind of get in a little bit of the spiritual realm of things. And we take a tradition of giving a prayer before, because we want protection over us while we're storytelling, and protection over the property, because you never know. So if y'all don't mind, I'm going to have Walmart Steve come up and give prayer. Thank you, Steve. In traditional native storytelling, prayer is usually given, and just a little bit of historical aspect. This property, before it was ever a church camp, before it was ever a logging camp, this is one of the primary areas. It was a Choctaw encampment back pre-statehood. You have Little River, Rock Creek, and Honobia Creek that meets right here at the bottom of the hill where the bridge is. So back in the day, and still today, a lot of the native culture placed around water, and it being significant spiritual, we have the three bodies of water: Rock Creek, Honobia Creek, and Little River right here. So there's a lot of spiritual, historical aspects to the property in this area, into the mountains.
I hope you aren't clapping for Troy. Anyway, my name is Tim. 2006, kind of started getting interested in Bigfoot, and I'm that armchair Bigfoot guy. So I'm watching it, every show I can find on Bigfoot, I'm watching it. I'm just intrigued. 2010, I finally get out into the woods. So I'm still kind of new at this, 9 years. There have been several years where Troy and I have gone out every other weekend somewhere. So I do have a lot of experience for only being it for 9 years. Probably the best experience I've had, Colgate, Oklahoma. Does anybody know where Colgate is? Colgate, Oklahoma, we got a friend of ours that owns 90 acres out there. We'd been going out there for several months, like every other weekend. And, we'll get sticks thrown at us. We'll get stuff that happens. I tell everybody that is not a believer or is new at this, they're not going to come out and high-five you and shake your hand. So that's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for, if you're looking into the trees and you have the moon back there, it's going to be white. If something moves in there, it'll block that whiteness out and it'll go completely dark. That's the kind of stuff you're looking for. My boss, he's like, there's no such thing. I can't believe it. I hunt all the time and I never see one. Well, like I said, they're not going to come out and greet you and welcome you to the woods. So you really need to know what you're looking for in that aspect. But probably the best experience I had, there was no doubt, I wasn't looking for anything. It came and found me. We were on that property in Colgate, and it was probably midnight. Back then, I'm 50 in January, so 40, a little bit younger. I could stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning and it didn't bother me. Now I'm in bed by 10 and I'm happy. So it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning. We were out there. There's some rocks. It's on the back of the property. It backs up to absolutely nothing. There's nothing in that area behind it. So we're sitting at the four-wheelers. We get sticks thrown at us. So Troy walks up forward. I'm sitting there by the four-wheeler. The property owner has 2 dogs. Both of them have grown up there, so they really know the area. They're at my feet asleep. Troy's about 20 feet in front of me. You've got woods, and then you've got openings on each side of me, beside me. Out of nowhere, in my peripheral vision, I see something that's only about 6 or 7 foot tall. It comes running out of the woods, and about 5 steps, it was about 20 feet out of the woods. As soon as I turned to look at it, I get a beautiful shot of it. I absolutely know what it is because it's bright enough out there that you can see what it is. Immediately the dogs get up and they start chasing after it and barking. It's only about from me to the red shirt there, you know, so I've got a good vision. That's Mordecai, by the way. I've got a good vision of it. As soon as the dogs got up and took off after it, it turned back and ran in about 5 steps back into the woods. So that is probably the best. I've never had a daytime experience, unfortunately, that I know of. But that is probably the best one that I've ever been able to see. You know, other than that, I have seen a lot of shadows. You know, we got trailed down here. We had 2 campfires going. There was probably a group of 10 of us. Me and another person were at one campfire. Everybody else was at the other. Troy came down to our campfire. He's like, y'all go back up there. About 300 feet from each campfire. Every time we would take a step, there was something about 15 feet in the woods, it would take a step. Every time we would stop, it would stop. And it trailed us all 300 feet that way. As soon as we started getting close to the other campfire, the people at that other campfire were looking our direction in the woods, and they're just freaking out because they can see eye shine, you know. Bigfoot is nocturnal, I believe that, so they can see at night, and that's why their eyes will glow white, yellow, red, that type thing. So we've had some really good experiences out here, you know, as much as we've been out. If you guys aren't a believer or you're new at this, the only thing you can do is get out there in the woods, you know. You're never going to experience something unless you get out there, and that's what's key. You can watch all the shows you want. So, real quick, I know Troy did it earlier. Who has felt like they've seen one? That's a pretty good crowd. You know, you should use your best judgment.
We just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, see? Oh my God, I was hoping you didn't see that.
So, let me ask you a question here. What do you think it was?
Well, we
Hold up, hold up.
Oh, sorry.
If anybody wants to talk, they need to come to the microphone because it's extremely boring for the rest of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I just don't know.
So, why don't you start from the beginning? Tell us what you said, what you heard, what you said. And it's all right. We're all friends here.
Well, after the campfire last year, me and my friend, it was the first time we'd ever been here, and we were staying in Ho Chi Town, and we were leaving, and there's a real sharp curve, and then if you miss that curve, it goes into a field. And when the light shined in that field, I thought it was a four-wheeler at first, but it was like squatted down, and it just kind of turned its head and looked at us. And when it did, its eyes looked like reflectors. And so we just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, "Is that what I think it was?" And she was like, "Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to say that." And so we don't know if. I'm sorry. Okay.
So, after campfire last year, her and her friend were going back to Ho Chi Town. They were staying in Ho Chi Town. As they round one of the corners, they see something squatted down like this. As they get closer, it turns its head and looks at them, and all they said is they saw red glowing eyes. So my question to you is, what do you think it was?
we both thought it was the same thing, and we were kind of.
They both thought it was the same thing.
Yeah, we think we saw them.
They think they saw a Bigfoot. Why would you even second guess that? You know?
Because we never seen one before, but
Right.
it turned its head,
Yeah. So they clearly saw something turn its head. You know, if you've had an experience like that, there's no reason to second guess yourself. It is what it is. So, you know, what I would say to that is, if you think you saw something and you feel in your heart that you did, then there's probably no mistaking that you saw something.
Is Tony or Delinda Starr in the crowd? Tony or Delinda Starr? Okay. There was. Sir, you had something?
Can y'all hear me now? First, I'm going to give you a little history on me for a few. I'm 56 years old. I've never been here before. I live over around Podo now and retired, moved over there. Lots of property up at Tallahena, north of Tallahena, about 3.5 miles north up on the top up there. And but I have never revealed this story to nobody. And if you're going to laugh at me, do it now, not tomorrow when I'm eating a burger. But anyways, I've never been here before. Went into the conference room over there to listen to it a few hours today. But I've been out in the woods my whole entire life, ever since I was a kid, deer hunting, the whole 9 yards. And about 3 years ago, I set my deer feeders up on this piece of property. And the nearest house is 3/4 of a mile away. And all through the month of October, I was living in Claremore at the time because we was rebuilding a house over in the Podo area. And I took a 55-gallon drum and cut a hole out in it on the side, had it stood up, and I bolted it to this tree. So I would come down about every 2 weeks and fill it full of corn. And I've done this for probably about a month, through all the month of October, because I didn't do anything but rifle hunt. And got the bears was coming into it. I seen some bears on it, a little old mama and her cubs, and they was eating the corn, the raccoons and the deer and all that stuff. I had a ground blind that I built. It was a little building, a cabin type deal, probably from here to them trees right down here from my blind. So had plexiglass windows in it and everything. So a couple of days, well, about 2 weeks before rifle season, I come back and fill my feeder and stuff up. When I come back to fill that feeder up, right before, a couple of days before season, my feeder was ripped plumb off of the tree. And I'm thinking, well, it's got to be a bear, you know, because bears going in there eating that corn and stuff. So I strapped that feeder back on the tree with some ratchet straps and filled it back up, and come back in a couple of days to go deer hunting. So I'm sitting, I got in my stand and it was raining, and it was 3 years ago. If you can Google the weather back that far, the third day of rifle season, you can see where it was raining, sprinkling, raining and stuff like that. And I got in my deer stand about an hour and a half before deer season, or hour and a half before it opened up. I'm a little nervous telling this because I've never told this story before. So, but about right a little bit, I was about in there about an hour and a half before. So I'm sitting there and I could hear something in the brush down through there. Couldn't see anything. So I'm thinking, well, a bear or something down through there, and it just barely starting to crack daylight. And about where them trees are down there, on the other side of my feeder, there was nothing on the feeder, and I could just barely see the blue feeder down there, the barrel. I could see a body moving through the brush, coming right up to the left of me, and I had to cross the road in a gully on a hill to where I was at, and it was a little bit darker than what it is now. So I took my rifle scope and I lifted my scope up, and I was looking through there, and the first thing I thought, it was a bear. And I got to looking, and you know, everybody's talking about, you know, Sasquatches or whatever, you know, this tall, this tall, this tall. But what I seen wasn't but about this tall. Not much bigger than one of these youngsters sitting right here. About this tall right here. So I thought, that's got to be a bear. So I took my scope and I zoomed it in. And I just started staring at that, and I thought, that is not a bear. It looked to me, being honest with you, it looked like a human in a suit. But here I am on private property, 3/4 of a mile away from any house in that location up there. And I thought, I almost shot it. I started shaking, and I could see the visual of it moving to the left over there. And I thought, no, I can't do that, because if I'd done that, if I somebody in a suit over there, I'm in some bad trouble. But who's going to be out there in a suit during rifle season, 3/4 of a mile away of a house around through there? And it was sprinkling, raining and everything. And it just kind of moved right on to the left and went right up through there. Never seen it no more. It had to have crossed the road going on to the north up through there. But I'll tell you what happened. I got so nervous on that when I actually seen the body of it moving through the brush. I stayed in my deer stand all day long, never come out of it. Never seen no more animals. There wasn't no birds flying. There wasn't no squirrels chirping or nothing. In about 45 minutes, I'm telling you, about 45 minutes to the dark, I had to make a decision. Either sleep here all night or get to my truck. So I made it to my truck. Make a long story shorter, that's been 3 years ago. I've quit deer hunting. I've sold that piece of property over there. Now, I don't even deer hunt no more. But that's my story.
Thank you. That was a great one. Yeah. You know, I watch TV. I see the stories of them following them through the woods and rocking their truck, and unfortunately, I've never had that happen to me. So, I think, honestly, if you continued the deer hunt, you would probably be safe. You know, they don't want to get you. They really don't want you, I promise. You know, you've got nothing to worry about. So, there was another gentleman right here that wants to talk. What's your name?
My name's G.W. Segrist. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas, and a recently retired athletic director and football coach. And in December of 2007, I was a football coach at Arkansas High in Texarkana. And I had a cabin. I lived in Hot Springs, but I have a cabin on Lake Millwood, and it's located in southwest Arkansas, real close to Broken Bow, Idabel, Ashdown, Texarkana right there. And I was going to work. It was a December morning. It was mist and rain. It was 6:45, and I left my cabin. There was a hay meadow that's about a half mile from my cabin, and I was going down the road, going to work, not thinking anything about it. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw something crossing that hay meadow. Now, this is in December, so there wasn't any hay, any grass, or anything was bare. There was a little pond there, and that was it. And this object, the thing I saw was probably 200 yards away, and it was just making a steady pace. And I stopped. I'm a big outdoorsman. I hunt and fish all the time, and I always take pictures like all outdoorsmen and brag about their stuff. You know, the game and the fish and stuff that you catch. And so I had a camera in my truck, and I took 3 pictures of this thing that was crossing the field, and only one picture came out. Now I'm technologically impaired, and this was just an old-timey camera, just a regular camera. Well, when I couldn't wait to get it developed, and when I got it developed and everything, two of the photos were not any good at all. One of them, it was a pretty good photo, except it's 200 yards away, and it made out really good head and shoulder shot. Well, I don't know if some of y'all seen the show Finding Bigfoot. They found out about this and asked me to be on that show and wanted to come down there and do a segment at my cabin. And they wanted a picture and they wanted to blow it up and you know, use it on the show. And Bobo and Renee and that crew, they all came down there and got my picture, and they came down there and did a segment. The segment aired in 2012, episode 1, about Fount Monster and all that stuff there, and it had my deal on there too. Well, the picture, the producer called me and she said, the picture is missing. We think a researcher from Texas has got that picture and we can't get it back. And do you have a negative? And sure enough, I didn't have anything. And they gave me the name of these people, of this guy, and I called him and he said, no, I don't have it or anything like that. But hopefully that thing will resurface. But you could make out an excellent head and shoulders. It was huge. I watched it for probably a minute and a half across that field, and it had a real long gait. And the thing that really got to me, you know, I thought, well, maybe that's somebody in a ghillie suit, or maybe it's deer season, maybe it's somebody hunting. But when it got to a 5-strand barbed wire fence, and when it got to that fence, it stepped over that fence just like you step over a crack. It didn't even. I mean, you know. And when the producers on the show asked me to say, when they did the reenactment and all that kind of stuff like that, to say it was a Bigfoot, and I told them, I said, well, it was either one of two things. It was a 7.5 man in a ghillie suit that's a great athlete, or else it was a Bigfoot. And it was mist and rain a little bit that morning, not bad, so there's no tracks or anything like that. But since then, I found a lot of people, once I was on that show, a lot of people came to me with these stories and stuff like that and tell me in this area. And I compiled a bunch of those stories and put a little book together, and it goes from Akron, Arkansas, right up here, all the way down to Plain Dealing, Louisiana, down Fount and around Texarkana down there. And there's 26 stories in there that I believe to be just as true and accurate as they can be. And it's from people from all walks of life. One of them's a mayor, one of them's a doctor, one of them's a high school principal, and these are people that you really would trust. But, you know, that changed my life. I know what I saw, and I know what it wasn't. And it wasn't a horse or a cow or a deer or a bear or anything like that. It was walking upright, and I watched it for a long time across that field. And one of these days, maybe I'll get that picture back. But a lot of people saw it, the picture, and so, you know, I'm hoping I'll get it back one of these days. Thank you.
I was out deer hunting about 4 or 5 years ago, and I never saw what did this, but it was sleeting real heavily, and it was covered on the ground. It had snowed a little bit the night before, and so the little hedgerows along a pipeline that I was hunting, which is north of Wilburton out at Robbers Cave State Park, if any of you know where that's at. I was on the game management area, and I'd gone about 25 yards down the hill, and it's a real steep valley with a stream in the middle. And I'd gone about 25 yards, and I thought, well, I'm going to edge off the edge of the woods so I wouldn't be seen so much. I was still hunting, and the sleet was just a crunching under my feet, so it wasn't a good day to do it. And I was the only one I saw out there, and usually you'll see other people if there's people out there hunting with their vehicles parked along the edge of the road. And I guess I was one of the only ones foolish enough to go out on a day like that. But anyway, I went down there, and I heard a tree crash and limbs break. And I thought, well, you know, maybe the sleet, and I looked around, and the trees weren't covered in it. It was sticking to the ground good, and it was coming down good, but it wasn't sticking to the trees at that time. So I thought, well, that's weird. And it was loud. And a couple of seconds later, I hear this whap, 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 louder than anything I could imagine. And of course, it was echoing through that valley really well. And it sounded like it was about 50 yards away from me or so, just guesstimating the sound. And a couple of seconds later, I heard this whap, whap, whap again. but I never did see anything, and I couldn't bring myself to go on down and investigate any further. But I don't know what it was. You know, I always thought about the shows where they talked about the wood knocks and all, and it was extremely loud. I don't think anybody here could hit a tree and make that much noise. And I don't know what with, whether it was a limb or what. That's my story.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your service.
She lived in Tahlequah. She was going to Northeastern State University to major in speech pathology. So we decided we want to do a float trip. We traveled to War Eagle, if you know where that is, and we decided to canoe down the river. Well, we also decided we wanted to hike some trails. And so there's this trail, I guess, behind the wilderness area in the War Eagle area. And so we're going hiking. We're going up this hill. And we're just we're making a lot of noise. Like, we're telling jokes. We weren't even thinking about Bigfoot or anything, you know, out there. And all of a sudden, I hear this. And I hear it over and over and over and over again. We hear it 2, 3, we hear it a lot. And we're kind of freaking out because we're like, okay, we're not in the middle of the African jungle. This isn't a gorilla. This, you know, I mean, we knew it wasn't a bear. We knew it wasn't, you know, it was like something escaped the zoo or something. No, we didn't know what it was. And so we, as fast as we can, we go back to our cabin. And we ask anybody else, did they hear that? And at first, people denied that they heard it. And then when we told the entire story, then people were saying, yeah, we heard something. So, and we decided not to go out there again because we were kind of scared about it.
To do this, my sister and I be put together. And so she promised me she'd do more of the talking. So you go right ahead, and I'll just jump in.
Okay, so September 1st of last year, I drive home at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I find this one standing in a chair in her backyard with binoculars. So of course I had to pull in, and I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? And this is what she was doing.
Okay, before she pulled in the driveway, my husband's mowing the yard, and I guess it's intrigued to Bigfoot. And I see a dark figure sitting at a tree, and I'm back there, and I'm in the back of our yard, and I'm backing up going, am I really seeing what I'm seeing and everything? And I turn my head because we have fire ant hills and trees and stuff in the yard, and when I look back, you know, I just took my eyes off it. For a minute, it had moved. So I ran in the house, didn't get my phone, didn't get anything to take a picture with, but rather I got my binoculars, and so I ran back out and got in a chair in the yard, and I see it again. And it's standing behind a tree break. And the top of his head is right where the break is, and he's going in and out of the tree looking at me. And so that's when I called her, and she pulls up into the yard. And I'm trying to get her up in the chair so she can see it, and she's saying she's not seeing it. And in the midst of that, we lose it. Like, we turn our head and it's gone. And so we begin to walk our fence row, and when we go, and so it's where we live, and it's in our backyard. We are blessed beyond measure to not have, I mean, they're where we are, and I'm so afraid to tell you where we are. I don't want that out, and we don't want to hurt them. But anyway, so we go down the fence row, and there's a red one in a thicket with long hair, long wispy hair on its head. There's one or two more in the thicket with it. There's another one to the side of it, and she can explain what it did. And that one, there's one to the side that I saw an eye blink, and I watched a hand come up and move a limb slowly from its chin and put it back down. There was a log back behind the thicket, and there was a white one laying on its side, and we watched I watched the hair move and everything, and we're studying this for about like 15 minutes. You go ahead and tell them about yours before we go back down the fence road. Okay. So, first of all, let me just say the black one that she was watching was extremely tall. We're thinking this is the alpha male. I mean, he was, according to her, very dark, leathery black face, kind of oily, but very, very tall. I did not see it. I did see the tree with the break. Of course, we're too chicken to actually go out there and measure the tree, okay? So I don't know how tall it was. But we are getting some 19-inch prints whenever we are looking around the house. While she's looking there, so you've already counted Bigfoot, right? She's got the big black one that she has seen twice. Now she's seen the red one. There's something in front of the red one down in the brush that she's not getting a picture of or even knowing the color at this point. And then there's a white one laying behind a log. So she hands me the binoculars, and I see, I call it graybeard. I don't know how tall it was, probably 5.5, 6 feet tall. Don't know that it was a female. It was beautiful. It had curly hair. I saw its face. I saw part of its body. But the thing is, I stared at this thing through binoculars, and it was only about 20 feet away from me, but it was in vegetation. So I'm standing at the fence, and it's just a little bit farther away. It had light brown around its eyes, but the rest of it was dark brown, but it had a gray beard or a gray muzzle. Anyway, it blinked. It had the cutest button nose. It had dark eyes. It had lips that were just straight. I mean, there was no fullness to the lips at all. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in the daylight. And so I was explaining to Sister, and I'm saying, this is what I'm seeing. And so I hand her the binoculars, and she doesn't see it. She sees the other brown one. And explain what you saw on that brown one. That's the one that I saw, the one eye and the shoulder and the hand raised. That's what I saw. And then we go back down the fence road, hoping that the black one, I said, I want you to see this black one. When we get down there, it is in, there's a bush around it. It's actually a little closer to me. So I would say it's 40, the first time I saw it was like 40 feet in. So the next time it's a little closer to me, it's really observing us. It's got bushes and leaves and stuff all around it, but the face is totally exposed. Now, I'm that close to it with binoculars, and I bring it in, and I look at it for 15 minutes. There wasn't a speck of white on it. I have never seen anything on the internet that looks like it, but I can just tell you it was ape. If I could describe it, it was a human ape. It did not have the raised eyebrows. It didn't have a cone head. It didn't have any fur whatsoever on its face. It was leathery, like she was saying, and its mouth went straight across. The nose wasn't one of those big, broad noses. I just can't. If you hypnotize me, put me to sleep, I could describe it to you, and you could draw it. I'm not an artist, and everything that I do is a stick figure. But she's a good artist. But then I handed the binoculars to her so she could see the black one that I'd been staring at and that had been watching me so intently. And by the way, when we went back, that tree that it was standing behind the second time I saw it was plucked up out of the ground and laying at the foot of another tree inside the wooded area. And my husband will not let me go back there because if I can measure that tree, I could tell you how tall it was. She wants to blame her husband. She's too chicken to go back there, okay, people? Okay. But truthfully, the reason why she was out there and he was mowing the lawn is because 2 wolves actually came out from that area like 2 weeks before that and snatched one of their dogs and carried it off. So it is a little boogery, and we are kind of the chicken, and we call ourselves the scaredy cats. Anyway, so she hands me the binoculars, and I'm trying to find the black one, and I think I found the black one, but to me it's not black. It looks like it's been in the clay, and it's got moss on its face, and it's got fur all over its face. And we realized later, talking to each other, that we were looking at 2 different ones. The one I saw was probably about 7 feet tall, and it was, if she's me, it was at this angle to me, but it wouldn't look directly, it wouldn't turn its head and look at me. It would turn its eyes and look at me, and then come back. And I did stare at this one for quite some time also, through binoculars and without binoculars. So again, it wasn't that far away.
But the fun thing about this one was it pursed its lips. It would look at me and purse its lips out, and I could see the inside of its mouth. And it was a dark pink. It wasn't a red. It was just a really dark pink. And it did that twice. And then the third time, it actually stuck, I think it stuck its tongue out because it was so much more pronounced. And I thought, what in the world? But this thing was scary. I mean, I've kind of drawn both of these out, and I can't make this one look scary. It terrified me to look at this one. The other one I thought was really cute, but this one was terrifying. So if you add it up, and I know this sounds, I mean, it's almost unbelievable. It's a daylight sighting, you've got 2 witnesses, and there's multiple Bigfoot. But I promise you, it did happen September 1st of 2018 at 2:30 in the afternoon. I promise you it happened. And that's not the only activity we've had. That's just the only story we're going to share with you guys right now because I think you don't have a lot of time. But anyway, we appreciate y'all listening.
Thank y'all very much. We're going to wrap it up.
Me and my grandkids was walking to the pond, and we were talking, and then I kept hearing something else talking. As we got closer, it got loud. Well, one was talking loud enough that across the road, about maybe 1,500 feet or quite a ways, another one was talking back at it, and I was so in shock that I had my phone. I could have taped it. That's how loud it was. But they were like talking in another language. I mean, it was kind of like sounded Indian language, sorta, because my grandma and all them are all Indian, Cherokee, and it sounded kind of like that. But as we got up on the pond bank, he was standing on the other side of the pond, and they were still talking back and forth to each other. And we were standing there, and I told the kids, I said, look. Well, there's a particular one that I know, and it's black with a white chest, and I've been asking where he was at. Well, the next year he was like 3 times taller. He was 3 times taller the next year, but he was talking to the one across the highway, across the road in another area, and they were talking back and forth. And at the very end, I knew he knew we were standing there. He didn't bother us or nothing, but I swear he said, these people are stupid. I am not exaggerating. It was like the very end of the talk. And I thought, am I doing something? And I didn't want the kids to get scared, so I had so I said, hi guys, you see him over there? And yeah, let's just turn around and walk back to the house. So we kind of just slowly turned around and walked back. I have a lot of stories.
Thank you. He went down and checked. He's got hog traps, a few things down there. Jerry, come and tell him what you told me. Come here. This was the best interview ever. We're live on Facebook. Come tell us what you said. Yeah, come here. Come here. Come here. Come on. Yeah. All right. So I'm on live on Facebook. We got a bunch of people watching. Everybody's got interest in the tracks we found. This man that found them come up and said, man, you can come and take a look at these tracks. Get down there, and he's got the look on his face and said, all right, Jerry, so tell us what you were doing when you found these tracks. I was hunting. Okay, so Jerry was hunting. No more, no less. So he's perfect in court. So if the defense asked him a question, what was you doing when, whatever, I was hunting. Because you know when you're in court, you only answer what was asked. You tell a story? Well, come on up here. While you're walking, I'll tell the other interview I had with Jerry. It was dark. You're going to tell a story with marshmallow in your mouth? All right. Don't get any on this.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm from the great state of North Carolina. Hello, my name's North Carolinian. No, don't get North and South confused. We're 2 different states. Although we are amassing troops at the South Carolina border, we plan to overtake them. The same thing North Dakota's doing to South Dakota. But I really shouldn't talk about that because it's a secret. This is a story about just some weirdness that happened, not really far from here, but over in Arkansas. Is that what it is over there? And it's kind of creepy over there. And we were over at a property, and a lot of weird stuff happens over at that property. I won't go into all of it. Just one instance, we were there one day, and the property owner was telling us how he was communicating and interacting with the Bigfoot. And I didn't know this word existed, but it's called a GIF, G-Y-P-H. No, not the Facebook thing that spins, but it's like when you do things with the Bigfoot and they communicate. There's a word for it. So this property owner had been gifting in various different ways for a while, and one day they decided to put on a blackboard on a table, on the gifting table, with chalk. Well, days go by. You know how Bigfoot are. You never quite know what they're going to do when they're going to do it. One day, they went out there in the morning. One morning went out, and there were 3 or 4 or 5 lines on the chalkboard. Well, that's cool. Okay, not totally unique, because lines and Bigfoot somehow go together. So this was kind of cool. They wanted to leave this particular blackboard out there to see if there was any other drawings, but they couldn't because of weather and dew or whatever would erase what the Bigfoot had drawn. So they brought it into an enclosed area just for a keepsake, but they thought they might have been onto something. So the owner of the property, I'm not quite sure how he arrived at this solution, he took a grouping of PVC pipe, maybe 1 inch in diameter, dozen pieces, various different lengths and colors and things, and he would place it in a certain spot on his property, and in the middle of it, he would put a little green squishy monster. Okay. Once again, I forget exactly how he arrived at this attempt at communication. But what happens is, these PVC pipes would be lying there for days or whatever the case might be, and then all of a sudden they would be rearranged, and that little green squishy thing would be gone. Well, for all of us that have a certain piece of property, we know just about every part of that property, whether it be rocks or trees or valleys or dips or that kind of thing. And they recognized the whatever, the way it looked, and it reminded them of a tree that was in the back part of their property. Okay, why not? Let's go see what. So they went to the back of their property, and I'm going somewhere even farther than this. And in the PVC pipe was, and then sprouted out like a Y. So they found the tree that they thought this thing represented, and guess what was in the crotch of that tree? The green monster. Okay, how cool is that, huh? So we were there, I think it would have been the next day or two, something along those lines. And myself and Troy and Mordecai, who's not here, and his kids, and the owners. And we decided to, well, they left the sticks out there, the PVC pipe out there. And we, actually, we took the PVC pipe and stacked it up nice and pretty. I guess it would have been about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We meandered around the property, whatever, had some dinner, came back out, and the sticks had been rearranged. Now follow me on this. In kind of a square with a few lines in the middle, and we weren't really sure what this could have been. But the owner looked at it and recognized it as one of the outbuildings on his property. Okay? Now remember, we set this stuff up at 3 in the afternoon, and by 7 they had been back to move these things around. And it wasn't as though the PVC pipe was hidden. It was tucked in a corner, but it was still relatively visible. Well, he recognized that as a certain outbuilding, and guess what was on top of the outbuilding? A little green monster. So we don't know how this happens. I can't picture, an 8-foot, 800-pound hominoid picking this up and moving it around. Did that happen? How does all that happen? But I was there. I saw it. It was pretty freaky. So anyway, that's not a sighting, but a form of communication, and who knows how it happens. So anyway, cool.
All right, we're going to court. So Steve.
That's how dark it was when I was out in Fort Clark at the lake where we called it the Nature Center then, or it was called Greer Island then, but they call it the Nature Center now. But I first heard of Terry from telling that story that she had just told. But let me tell you a little something about her. She's had the Finding Bigfoot people out at her house. She had Renee out at her house on the CSI Oklahoma. And in the opening credits of that show, other than the big scary monster thing, which everybody doesn't really think of like that, she says, I have no explanation for what happened. That was a purpose. And what she was doing was she was doing her crazy scream that she does. And they were answering her back. And Renee was saying, what is that? And what were you telling her? That would be a Bigfoot. Bigfoot. I've been out there and we did wood knocks one night. And there were several of us there. And we heard the crazy owl sound that does not sound like an owl. And it was probably about from here to where the little church is, or just a little farther. But you could hear it very clear. We did the wood knocks again, and a different one answered down past where her daughter used to live there. Okay, her daughter-in-law used to live there. The crazy owl sound answered back for the other one that we did the wood knocks to. So that was twice I've heard the owl sounds, other than the other story I'm going to tell you about the park. Over in Chalomina State Park. I go in there and I talk to the park attendant, I call him the park ranger, and it was about maybe 1 or 2 the night before the Bigfoot conference. I come on Thursday nights. Now that I know Igor, I have to come on Thursday nights. Because I picked him up last year and Texarkana brought him here. And MK Davis brought him this year. That's where I'm going to have to go here just a little bit, take him and get ready to go back to Mississippi with MK Davis. Anyways, I was at the park in Talamina, and I get out of the truck about 2 in the morning to use the bathroom. My truck is very quiet when you open the doors, and I hear the crazy owl sound, and it was maybe down in the field just a little ways, and I listen and I went, oh no. I don't want to hear that right now. So I get back in the truck, and the next morning I remember there was a guy sleeping in a tent. And he was coming out of the showers, and I was going that way, and I stopped him, and I asked him, I says, did you hear an owl last night? And he turned and he looked at me, he goes, that was the biggest owl I ever heard. Yeah, well, it walked off over that way, because I could still hear it this morning. And he stops and he looks at me and goes, what do you mean it walked off? I said, I think it's one of them big hairy things. And he kind of gets this weird look in his face, and he goes, I was hearing trees snapping last night. I'm glad I slept in my truck. So I've heard the owls 3 times. One place and then another place. I've heard wood knocks in Arkansas, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it woke me up. I was sleeping in a cabin, and I heard Jose Canseco hitting a tree. And I opened my eyes and I thought, no, I didn't hear that. And then I said, I'm hearing one of the guys snoring, or somebody's walking through the cabin, and I stayed listening. And then I hear 2 more. And I was like, oh, they come from inside the house. So I'm a big believer, and you have to make noise when you're out there. You have to cook lots of pork. I always cook sausage when I go out. Cook it, and then the grease and stuff, I'm going to throw it, 40, 50 yards from the house, or the cabin, or wherever I'm at. And I think if my theory, make noise, have a good time, enjoy yourself, don't be afraid of whatever's out there. Because if they don't hear you, they're not going to know you're there. They're not going to hear some of these cars that are really quiet, but my cars are quiet. I want people to hear it. So my story from 1976, 43 years ago. I was 17 years old. Okay, I'm telling the story. I'll be there in about 45 minutes. Yeah. It's Igor. Okay, my story from 1976. I was 17 years old. There was a new kid in our school. His name was Mike. And he came from Oregon. Why do you come from Oregon to come down here and hear something crazy? You could probably hear it better in Oregon. So him and I worked, and Friday night we went to Kmart. I was buying some things, and I bought my two sisters that used to go fishing flashlights, floating flashlights. So I bought the other sister that didn't go fishing. She got one too. So as we were there getting the stuff and getting ready to go pay at Kmart, we see a friend of mine from the neighborhood. He lives on the next block, my best friend. And he tells his mom he's going with me. So she says, y'all be careful. Be home early. Mom stuff that she tells us. And we take off and we go straight to the beer store. And we buy 6 beers. 6 beers. So my friend Al always used to like to travel the lake roads, the lake roads. So you go through Fort Worth, out through Lake Worth, and you're practically in the country in 10 minutes. So we used to fish out there. We used to go out there all the time. And we even got left out there in a john boat one night in the summer. I don't remember if it was the summer before that or not, but we never went out there again for a long time. So it's about 11 o'clock at night, and we'd already drank 1 beer, and we're on our second beer. And people always say, you were drinking beer, that's why you heard this thing. I beg to differ. 2 beers will not make you hear things. So we stop, and it's dark. All you can see is the tail lights and the park lights on the front of the truck. And this is where we used to fish. It was a turning river, I call it, the bend in the river. So we stop, we get out, and we start putting batteries in the flashlights. The one guy stays in the truck because he really likes Ted Nugent. He wants to hear the radio as loud as he can turn it. But this song is called Stranglehold, and it has a quiet part near the end of it. And it gets loud, and it gets soft, and he's got the guitar really strumming, and he's singing. And me and Mike were out back of the truck, and we put the batteries in the flashlights, and we shine them around. He says, y'all come out here? I said, yeah, we come here, quite often here. So, but it's so cold right now. It's freezing cold. It's December 23rd. It's Friday night, December 23rd. And it was misting a little bit. And me and Mike are standing there talking, and the sound we heard, I don't think all of y'all people standing there could duplicate a scream like that. It would make a person duck forward, get a turtleneck. I gritted my teeth and I looked over my shoulders going, oh, this is not good. This is not good at all. So now I've got a kid standing, squeezing my arm, screaming into my ear, hollering at me, what is that? And I'm going, I sure want that. We're going to die right here if we don't hurry up and get out of here. So it screamed once, and it sounded like an elephant when it first started, and then it did like that guy on Finding Bigfoot named Bobo, where he's going, my lungs ain't that big, because it screamed for about 7 seconds. And then it stopped, and apparently took another deep breath, and screamed again. Now me and Mike, we look like Laverne and Shirley. We're holding each other, we're jumping up and down, and we're trying to make it to the truck. And the radio lowers. Al rolls down the window and he sticks out his hand and says, what was that? And it screamed the 3rd time. And you can hear the window going up. And I opened the door and I shoved Mike in. And everything was just, normal. Got to get out of town quick. And I put my hand on the shifter, and Al reaches over and he says, "Whatever you do, don't wreck." And we take off and we go straight, right, left, straight. And we stop at the stop sign. I don't remember anybody saying anything until we stopped. We were about a mile and a half down, 2 miles. And we all started looking at each other and started, what was that? And you know, that's all I remember. From the stop sign, I don't remember anything else after that. But up to the time where we were driving up, I remember it very vividly. And then after I went back to school, they told me about a guy that said he'd seen it. And they call it the goat man. And they draw it as a weird looking animal with horns and stuff. And Dennis described it as 7 or 8 feet tall, 3 or 4 feet wide, with biceps the size of watermelons. So he was the first guy that said he saw it. I'm a mechanic for the city of Fort Worth. So there was a guy that really made a lot of fun of me. And the new guy came to work there named Wayne Clark. And he told him, don't talk to him. He says he's heard Bigfoot. And Wayne walks up to me and he goes, I want to hear your story. I was like, really? Oh, okay. So I tell him my story. And he says, you know something? My dad's the director out there. Now I have to go home and apologize to him because he said he saw it and he heard it all the time. And I met another guy named Gino, and Gino said he saw it twice and once in Rutherford. So I come out here, you know, I don't feel like I'm an oddball when I'm in town. People don't believe in Bigfoot, that's fine. I come out here and I see all you people that all have a connection to come out here and you know, share with us and be with us. It's really nice. And I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing again, but I'm not in no hurry. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, I love being outdoors, so that's 100% plus for me is being outdoors and coming out here. 4 Bigfoot conferences ago was when it was 27 degrees, no, 37 degrees. So it was 2016, but that was 4 conferences that I was counting. 16, 17 I didn't come because there was some group, I'm not going to name them, but they were called Killing Bigfoot. So I didn't come in 17. I came last year in 18, 19 today. So that's 4 Bigfoot conferences that I've come to, and there was about 3 or 4 more before that. But it gets bigger every year. I like it more every year, and it costs me more every year. I need to stop going and get an Igor. I'm going to leave him on y'all next year, I hope. I'm going to be walking around with a tip jar. It gets quite expensive having to go and get him in housing. But maybe we'll house him here next time. I don't know.
We have expeditions throughout the year, and Evans and his brother came on an expedition to answer her question, daytime. And, all right, y'all can do the spy show. Back down the road about a mile, there's an area where we go back up. It's technically private property, and you're really not supposed to be back up in there, but it's okay. That's an area that we go a lot, and I've gone for years, and I know when we're there, it ain't too long. They usually cross the road where we just came from and brought back into the timber, and then usually that's where we get a little bit of rock since I shine. So I'll bring it up to the part that you just finished your part to help her answer that question. It is still daylight, starting to get dark. We pulled down the road, and something just told me, said, I'm going to tell Evans and his brother to put their chairs right here and just look right down that road. On the left is a large tree. It's going to be a dark spot. They usually cross right there, back over into the timber. So watch that spot right there.
Right. Well, Troy had told us that his method of searching for these things is we're not going to chase them. We're going to go to a specific spot and set up and talk and laugh and sing and whatever, you know, try to get their curiosity level up to come check us out. And so we had parked, set up our chairs in kind of a circle, and different people were assigned different areas to watch. And actually some rocks had started flying in from the very moment that we got there. And so it wasn't dark yet, it was kind of dusky. But my brother Keith and I'm really glad he's not here to tell on me how it affected me that evening. But Troy told us to watch that area, and there was about 100 yards down the road, there was a slight dip where there was like a low water crossing. And we had been sitting there watching, and all of a sudden we see this dark head peek out, you know, do the peekaboo from the north side of the road. And then I grabbed my brother's arm, and about that time he just stepped across. Just stepped right across there. And it was just tall. It wasn't massive like we think of Patty or some of those type. It was really tall, but it was more skinny and long hair. But it was so far away, about 100 yards, we didn't really see any facial features or anything like that. It was just black hair, just black flowing hair. And it just stepped across so quick. So, you know, that was, to us, we were very fortunate to see it while it was still daylight. But there was so much activity after dark, more rock throwing, chattering, and then the two screams. The second scream is the one that shook me up really bad. And I told Troy, as I walked by toward the truck, I don't want to meet the thing that just made that sound. So, anyway.
Thank you, Evans.
We were at Shauna's cabin, and it was me, Troy, and another guy. We had a lot of activity that day, a lot going on. We probably stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning. And when we went to bed, I put this recorder on. I just hung it on the barbed wire fence out there. You know, it's really secluded. It's a really secluded place. So I'm going to see if it comes through. If it's not, I'm going to tell you something that happened. I'm going to tell you anyway, but something that happened to me that really freaked me out. And let's just see if this comes through real quick. If I don't actually delete it. Did y'all hear that? Yeah, that was something I caught, which was really cool. I actually have a ton of wood knocks and stuff like that on here also, but I thought this was really cool. Try to get distinctive voice. I have no idea what it is. If you can't hear it, I'm sorry. But it was really cool. That was the first recording that I ever got, and I'm really terrible. You know, it was brand new, and I just hung it on the fence post, and I'm on the SLP instead of the LP, which I don't understand what either long play and slow long play. I have no idea. So anyway, I put it on that, and that's just one of them. I have a ton of wood knocks on there and different things. You know, I actually went through while I was at work, 8 hour a day. You got plenty of time, right? And, no, it won't work. I don't work. But I have a job though. Wrote it all down on a book right here, so I have all of them, you know, written down. This was kind of when I was new, and I've never told this story in a crowd. I have told it to certain people in our group, Troy being the first one because I didn't really quite understand it, so I called him like 100 times, you know, trying to figure it out. Boggy Depot State Park is on the other side of Atoka, and it's closed, so there's nobody out there. We took a group of about 10 of us out there. This was probably one of the first 5 times I'd ever been, you know, in that area, 5 to 10 times that I've ever done anything in the woods like that. It was 30 degrees for the high, and the low was at 0. So you can imagine it was super cold. I remember getting there that Friday night, and I froze my tail end off and ended up sleeping in the front seat of my truck because it was so cold I could run my truck all night. It's a company truck, I don't care what it is. Just kidding. But I could run my truck all night and run the heater. I remember getting up that Saturday morning, I drove to Walmart in Atoka and got me some like long johns and a different jacket so that I wouldn't freeze throughout the day and that night. That night we did go out in the woods. A few things happened, you know, nothing really major. So we were all sitting around the campfire. About 11 o'clock, I decided I'm going to go climb in my truck and go to bed. So I'm sitting up in my truck behind the steering wheel with my head down. I can sleep anywhere, mind you. And I'm asleep. About 3:30 in the morning, I hear Troy and the other guy behind my truck. They're just talking. So it wakes me up, and they're back there, you know, talking. As I'm watching them, they end up going to bed about 3:30. And I'm sitting there in the front seat of my truck, and I remember that, I don't know, I just get this overwhelming feeling that I'm being watched. So if you can imagine, for the next 45 minutes, I'm looking in the side mirrors, I'm looking in the rear view mirror, I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right, and I just freaked out. You know, everybody else is in bed in their trucks, so there's nobody moving around. It's really quiet. It's really secluded, and I just remember having this overwhelming feeling that something was watching me. And I did find out later that Troy and the guy behind my truck did see something moving in front of my truck. I never saw it. I was asleep. But I remember, you know, I've got the clock radio on because the truck's running. And I remember it was about 4:15. I looked up at the clock. That's the last thing I remember. 7:30 the next morning, I woke up. I got in my truck. Troy had already left that morning. A lot of the guys were packing up and leaving. So, you know, I've got everything in my truck. I just start the truck up, you know, and head on out to the house. I remember getting home that day. It was kind of a normal day, just like, you know, any other day. Go home, do laundry, watch TV, that type of thing. I live in at the time I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. So it was really, really small apartment. And I remember going to bed that night, and I'm 5'11", 290. But I remember going to bed that night, and I actually had to look under my bed to see if anything was under my bed. I walked over to the closet. I looked in the closet because I just had this freaked out feeling that something was in the room with me. I looked behind the bedroom door, and I remember calling Troy about 10 o'clock going, what the heck's going on here? You know, I mean, I was pretty freaked out. And this actually went on for about a month. Didn't affect me when I was in the living room watching TV. But every time I went to bed, I had to look under the bed, in the closet, behind the bedroom door, you know, anywhere that there could be something hiding that could want to get me, you know. It was kind of a weird feeling. But finally, after about a month, it did dissipate to where, you know, I didn't have to do that anymore. But I don't know if anybody's ever had anything really weird happen to them like that. But I can tell you, at the time I was 40, you know, for a 40-year-old man to have that feeling after being in the woods, you know, you think, do you ever want to go back? And of course, you know, I'm curious. I want to go back. I want to see what caused it. I want to see what happened. To this day, I still don't really know what happened. You know, I just remember what happened to me and what I went through for the next month. So, if anybody's ever had anything weird like that happen to them, I would really like to know, because I'd really like to know more about it. You know, so thank you.
To finish his story,